Hello, I'm Rachel Richards and welcome to Teenagers Untangled, the audio hug where we use research by experts and our own experience to discuss everything and anything to do with parenting teenagers.
Hi, I'm Susie Asley, mindfulness coach, mindfulness therapist and musician. I have 3 teenagers, 2 of them are twins.
As a parenting coach, mother of 2 teenagers and 2 older stepdaughters, I've seen the transformative power of listening to how other parents work. We can feel supported, get fresh ideas, and even if we disagree, it helps us to think more clearly about the way we parent and why. So welcome, pull up a chair and let's begin. Now in this episode, we're going to talk about parties, but Susie, please, before we start, share with us what our lovely listener Frankie said.
Yeah, really lovely review here. Thank you so much for all the research and time you put into this podcast and all the others. It was so interesting and enlightening. It encouraged me to challenge some of my internal thoughts around gift giving and my own expectations. You should be top of the podcast charts. Oh, that's very kind. I found you when my son started experiencing anxiety, and listening to your podcast on that subject helped me so much and how to approach it, and it worked. Thanks again. Oh,
amazing.
You,
and you know, that anxiety podcast is one of the most downloaded of all of ours. So clearly it's a massive problem for so many parents. Yeah. And it's I wasn't sure how well it had landed. So that's really great to hear.
Nice. I'm thinking we could maybe do a follow-up one on that. Be nice.
Yeah, it's in the pipeline.
Yeah.
This time we're going to be talking about parties. But before that, I want to share my own golden nugget that was triggered by a conversation with an Asian father. Now, he told me that the tradition in his culture demands that kids look after their parents and that his wife has found the responsibilities overwhelming. She hates them so much that she's brought her own sons up saying that they don't have to do anything for her and their job is to live their lives free of that responsibility. Now, the father's worry, of course, is that their sons now feel no sense of responsibility and that they take everything she does for granted, and he thinks they're taking advantage of her. And it reminded me of our very first episode. And of course, I told him, look, it's a classic response to an upbringing we hate. We try to fix the pain in ourselves by making sure our own kids don't have it. But the way we tend to do it is often extreme. So we don't help ourselves and we don't really help our children. And, you know, when I look at myself and the way I respond, I know from experience that when I have a big response to something my teens are doing or saying, it's almost always because of my inner child reacting. So I try to find time on my dog walks to dig into what's caused it. And once I can identify it, I can talk to my teens about why I behave that way. And then we have power to manage it better.
Yeah, interesting. I like that. That's really, really interesting. And it's so true. Yeah, my nugget is, it's the kind of the classic of what you're missing, what you're lacking, then you give it. So, I mean, I really believe that we are responsible for the tone that we set as the adults, even though we've got almost adults ourselves. Mm-hmm. They're not quite. We are responsible for the tone that we bring. And I think sometimes if we're tired, if we're lacking in other areas, we kind of, I don't know, we become very reactive, don't we, and ping pong. And I had a morning, this morning, in fact, where there was lots of things yesterday. And, you know, and just a little tiny 2% stress here, 2% stress here, 2% stress there. And suddenly you're at full capacity. And I knew, I could feel it because that's how I work. You know, I could feel I needed to do what I do, the tools that I have, and bring myself back into balance. And then there was just another one. That came, you know, one of my teenagers hadn't got up, or was it? And it was like, and I could feel it happening. So I took myself off after it was all sorted and fixed, and then the problem itself had resolved. Took myself off for a really long run and sat and meditated and brought myself back into where I need to be, and then I can set the tone and I could, you know, be there for my daughter. I could do what I needed to do. But I don't know, we have to take responsibility for how we are.
Yes, and I love that because it reminded me of a conversation I had about micro stressors, where we get up in the morning, there's a text and we go, I didn't deal with that. And then there's an email, and these little things that they're in themselves, they're nothing, but you get to a certain point in the day where somebody says something and it might normally be something you can cope with. But because your stress cup is so full, you just lose it.
Yeah. It's that window of tolerance. You know, if you're out of your window of tolerance, and the more we practice being aware, the more we practice mindful awareness, the more we know when we're at the edge and can bring ourselves back.
Yes, absolutely. Brilliant. Love that. Right now, parties. We wanted to have a look at the tips that we can come up with for hosting a party, talking to your teenager about going to a party, because it's coming up a lot, and also it's party season. And we mentioned this idea on social media, and we had this wonderful response from Little Miss Thinker, who said she used to have a friend whose mother said they could have parties but had to choose between boys or booze.
Yeah, brilliant.
Susie,
comment.
come on, which one would you choose?
As a teenager or
yeah. Oh my goodness, that's hilarious. No, as a teenager.
Oh, I would have chosen boys.
Same.
Yeah.
And, they always say, well, you could just sneak booze in anyway.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I was never
And they
that
do.
bothered by the booze. So for me,
Yeah.
it definitely would have been the boys.
It's a funny one to give your teenager.
And then if you actually say to you, I've got girls, so I say to the girls, would you like a party? It's just not a party if it's just girls.
No,
Now, when they
no,
were younger,
no.
oh, for sure, that's
No.
a party. But, at a teenage years, it's not really a party without the
No.
other sex.
No, some of them use the term gathering, don't they?
Yeah,
Even then,
yes.
that wouldn't be classified as that.
Well, one of the things I researched said that when they call it a small gathering, that's what kids call parties when they want you to think that it isn't a party.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, in a way, I haven't kind of come up with a very specific definition of what a party is, but I think what we'll focus on here is something where you're actually there's some form of invitation to a party. So your teenager comes to you and says either, I'd love a party, I want to have a party, or I want to go to this party.
Yeah,
because that's slightly, yes,
thing,
the gatherings that you can get, they're slightly different. Some of this stuff does apply. So thinking it through could help you consider whether you would want a gathering to take place in your house without actually having a few ground rules and having talked it through with your teenager. Because again, this can creep up on us, can't it?
Yeah, and I think that is actually key. And just, thinking about this topic and discussing it with you a bit beforehand is already making me think, and knowing that, if you don't have those ground rules in your head beforehand, then it's really difficult. So it's really helpful to know what are your ground rules, what are your non-negotiables.
Yeah, and it's always to do with parenting. It's what happens is these things creep up on us before we really had time to think it through, and then suddenly you're confronted with, I've got to make this decision. But that's my first tip, which is take your time. If they come to you and they say, I either want to go to this party or I want to host a party, you don't have to answer immediately. They may want to put pressure on you, but you're within your rights to say, I need a little bit of time to think about it. Step back and think, okay, where do I sit with this, and what's important to me? And I think what we should do is go through hosting your own party, because the things you have to consider when you're hosting your own party are things that someone else is having to consider. And it will then inform the questions that you ask if you are sending your teenager to another party. And of course, it really is age dependent.
Yeah, and child dependent.
Child dependent.
Because I have 3 children, and they're really different, and they're really different socially as well. So I think my younger boy, and I'm pretty sure he's never going to listen to this because he's told me he's never going to listen to it. So he's much more sociable. So his parties will be different from my eldest. My eldest has had a party, and it was really fun. It was a lovely party, but it would be different with this one.
Yeah. And also, so for example, let's say they're 17, 18, that's a rather different age group to 13, 14. So we're talking about a massive age range here. But if it's a 17, 18-year-old who hasn't been going to parties, it's also about how much experience have they got in troubleshooting and how you deal. So obviously just think about the child that you have, and you've got 3 different children.
And one of them's nearly 18, he's nearly an adult. So, me asking him some of the questions is like, it's his stuff now. And he wouldn't tell me that, no, it's his own thing.
I just think that's a bit weird. Right.
Yeah.
So your child's come to you and said, I want to have a party. So there are key things. First of all, just say, okay, you go away and plan your party and come to me with your ideas, and I'll have my own ideas, and let's have a conversation about it. So you can get them to come up with their best case scenario. You think about your best case scenario or your worst case scenario, and then somehow you can make a negotiation. So the key things are number of guests. knowing who these people are. Do you care about having names, and being clear that if they're not on the list, they're not coming in. And there's a reason for this, and we'll come on to that. Having your teenager, in terms of invitations, the reason why it's worth having a list and it's worth knowing that the kids can't come in if they're not on the list is because it's also to do with traceability and safety. So what I mean by that is if you don't have a number to call and something goes wrong, then you're going to really be in a problem.
Yeah.
So it's critical. You can say to your teenager, I need to know who these people are. If something goes wrong, I need to be able to have someone to contact, because there's a parent at the end of that.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? I think it's really valid and really important for safety. I'm just thinking of, scenario if a really good mate comes along and has another really good mate with them, and I would probably say, come in.
And that happened. So we'll come on to that, because there was a lady who hosted a party, and that happened where she said, right, you have to be on the list to come in, and people were bringing their girlfriends or they just assumed that somebody else was allowed to come. And if you're okay with that, well, that's okay, but you need to know that, and you also need to know the ramifications, which we'll come on to. So you need to know who the people are. We need to talk about alcohol, vaping, smoking, drugs. So you need to be clear with your teenager about both how you feel about those things, the age range that there is, and how you will tackle it if it happens. So I've had conversations with a parent who said, oh, I've got all the drugs, I don't care.
Great.
Which I find really weird. Not in my house. No. And then I'm that parent who, if I found someone taking drugs in my house, I'd call their parent and say, could you please come and collect them?
That's not okay.
They wouldn't be in the house.
No.
So you need to be very clear. And spirits, at what age are you comfortable with spirits being in the house? Again, because teenagers are stupid and their job is to take risks and to do things that are fun, and they may think that would be great, but normally they're the people who, when they've drunk the spirits, are then vomiting all over your house.
And it comes always down to your connection with your kid, as it does, everything does. If you have a generally respectful, of course we all lose our tempers and all of that, but a generally respectful relationship and a good connection with your teenager, you can talk about the hard stuff as well. Then you can have a respectful conversation and explain, actually, in this house I don't want this, or I do want this is okay, this isn't okay, whatever your own values are. And then hopefully they'll respond to that. They'll respect it. They won't want to mess stuff up. They won't want to, and that doesn't mean that things won't happen and that they don't get caught up in the moment and their mates are doing stuff, but the fundamental baseline will be that they're on board.
Yeah. And I think having this conversation with them and being clear about it gives them a chance to be able to say to other teenagers, so this is how it is at home, and blame you, for example. Because one of the big problems is that they're also much more prone to being led by other people. And they may not have the strength or the ability to spot that something's about to go horribly wrong, or that their friends are doing things that they shouldn't really be doing.
And they can't stop them.
So you need to sort of just flag these things up so they can think them through beforehand and say, how are we going to deal with this?
I've also, I think, which is an important thing to think about, is that my eldest had a party. It was really fun. It was lovely. Nothing bad happened, but he found it quite stressful.
They do.
And I know
yes.
Another friend of mine had a party and they found it stressful. So it's worth kind of bearing that in mind. It was a bit of a cure. It was like, well, I'm not doing that again. Brilliant. We had a kind of small party. It went really well. There were only a couple of tiny weeny incidents, and done. Tick the box.
It's interesting because my older daughter had a party this summer and it was fantastic. Now, I don't know if all the guests thought it was fantastic because I refused to have spirits, and I think some of them were like, oh, that's a bit lame. But actually, as it happened, it seemed that everybody had a good time. And she was stressed. This is going, it's got to be a good party. And I kept saying to her, you know what? If they come and they're not having a good time, honestly, we have all this lovely things set up. It's their responsibility. And that's one of the things that we can teach our teenager, that actually it's not on you to provide these teenagers with a good time. You provide them with a venue. And it's their own personality that's going to dictate whether this is fun or not.
I think the stress can be two elements, though, can't it? It can be whether your friends are having a good time. So obviously that's important to the teenagers. You know, if you've thrown a good party or a really lame one, that doesn't look good, does it? But also the stress of, oh gosh, what if something goes wrong and they break things, or you know, if something goes wrong, that's stressful. And I don't think they really think that through until they're standing in their own home going, oh my god,
that hasn't been wrecked. And that's absolutely right, and that has concerned my kids, and they don't want parties because of that, because they're scared about the house being damaged. And on that note, we have to set ground rules for them. For example, where are they allowed to go in the house? Which rooms are out of bounds? Locked doors, which shouldn't be opened. And whether you allow smoking or vaping in the house or not, I would say no. But because, again, that's a doorway into all sorts of other issues.
And I think if we talk to the teenagers, not just our own, but their friends, and we talk to them, you know, with the presumption that they're lovely and they're respectful and they're welcome in our homes, you know, and just explaining. I mean, when my son had a party, my daughter was at home, me and my daughter kind of hid in my bed with my laptop watching some rubbish. It was really fun. And just I explained to them all, you know, please don't come into these rooms. You can use the loo upstairs, but that's it. You know, try and use the one downstairs. And they were all, you know, you're welcome, but this is our home and we're going to be up here. They were all like, oh yeah, of course, no worries.
Yeah. And again, it's about mutual respect.
You're not allowed.
No. And then they hate you for it. Yeah, it's about mutual respect. So we have to enter into the spirit of it. So coming onto the party invitations, do not in any circumstance let your child create a group Snapchat. Because what can happen is teenagers love to tell everyone, oh, I'm about to have a great search, and then forward the information, and then the other people will assume that they've been invited. And really this is really quite pertinent because, again, one of the people I researched said that as a result of Snapchat and then being used, people started turning up to the party, and it had been what they call broadcast.
Is that the map thing?
It's the map. So this is the other thing. When kids turn up to the party, you have to say, please turn off your Snap maps.
Yeah, that's
because people spot congregations of people on the Snap map, and they go, party. And very often the people who do that are older. Right? So they're not actually, you know, your kids may be, I don't know, 13, 14, 15, 16, you know, the ones who are thinking, oh, I'll just go to that party. They're unlikely to be 12-year-olds. They could be, but then, so you may have a much more difficult time trying to eject them from the party or stop them from getting in. And this one lady had to call the police, and the police had to then keep patrolling because once it's broadcast, people will keep turning up throughout the night.
The Snap maps, that's really important. We use Snap maps. I think they're weird and they're kind of handy sometimes when I don't know when one of my particular kids is always off with his mates. And so I get his sister to go, where is he? Look on his Snap maps.
All the time.
Oh, he's
all
there.
The time.
Brilliant.
So you want to include your contact details on any invitation because you want the other parents to be able to call you should they want to, and make it clear on the invitation that you will be providing all food and drinks, so they don't feel that they have a right to bring extra things. So just say it's fine. They will. So on the day of the party, lock away all your own spirits, all your valuables in a part of a house you know that the guests can't get to, including spare keys, hide them. Because you don't want, you know, who knows what could happen, because kids can play games and mess around, hide your keys, whatever. So just hide anything that you feel is valuable. And again, when the kids arrive, the friends arrive, explain the ground rules to the kids when they arrive. And you don't have to be this kind of fists on hips, but you do have to say, oh, so by the way, just remember, and I'll take all your coats and your bags. So just do it in a very gentle way. And they say, oh no, I need my bag. Just say, no, it's okay. We'll put the bags upstairs. They'll be safe. Because what happens particularly in this woman's party, two of the girls brought vodka in their bags, and then they were the ones who were vomiting an hour later and crying. And so it's worth just greeting them at the doors. If they say, oh, I brought a present for your child, you say, that's lovely. How kind of you, and take it. Don't let them give it to the child, because it probably will be alcohol.
Could be,
and you just say, we'll open it as a family tomorrow. It's, you know, it's very, very sweet of you. Thank you. because young people are devilishly clever.
And they don't realise it's the whole spirits thing, isn't it? They don't realise that, how strong they are and how ill they can get and all of that.
And so when you're talking to a teenager about it, don't say, I'm trying to shut down the fun. No, I've got these drinks. The thing is that spirits it's so easy for things to go horribly wrong very, very quickly, which is why they're such an issue.
And they drink them really quickly and then they don't feel the effect immediately, so they take some more.
Yes, and it can be dangerous as well.
Really
stomach pumping's
dangerous.
not very nice. And if a guest arrives preloaded, you have to make a decision. Do I allow them in? Do I call the parent? Is it something where I'm okay to say, look, you come and sit with me until you've calmed down a bit? Because if they come already very drunk, they're just going to get more drunk, and that's just going to cause more problems.
Let me make you a cup of tea and a piece of toast.
Exactly. Put out masses of food. Whatever you think is the amount of food, double it, because the boys at some point are going to need it.
Yeah.
And it soaks up the alcohol.
My son's been to some parties where it particularly, it sounds awfully sexist, doesn't it? But particularly if it's a girl throwing the party, and he says, like, him and his mates by midnight, they are starving and like there's no food. And they're like, where's the bread? Where's the pizza?
Yeah. So always, and lots of carbohydrates, not salty. The salty stuff, the problem with that is then it makes them drink more. Lots of water, lots of soft drinks, because they will. And, this woman said, basically an entire loaf of bread disappeared. Apples, all the apples went. Just any food. Just put food out, and if they're hungry, they'll eat it.
Yeah. And soft drinks. They will drink soft drinks.
They'll drink soft drinks. Buy multiple bottle openers. You don't want one bottle opener if there are bottles. So, and attach them with strings to things so that people can find them, right? And in terms of the gatecrashers, we've already mentioned this. If things start to feel a bit uncomfortable, you've got older kids turning up or people you suddenly realise, call the police sooner rather than later, and know that there's a chance that things can get broadcast. And this lady said that she would always have at least one parent in a household, and next time she would have a much bigger burly guy, because it just makes a difference in terms of dealing with
it shouldn't, but it does.
Problematic guests. Keeping kids safe. So this is, again, be in subtle attendance. Just remember that if you're the parent and something really catastrophic happens, like some child dies or something, that, you are going to be liable. So you do have to be aware. You can think it's really fun until it's not.
And you'd never forgive yourself if something happened on your watch.
No. So saying to your teenager, you know what, I just need to know that this is not going to happen because it's no fun.
And you don't have to be weird and sit in the lounge with them. You can.
Oh, there's
all right, everyone.
Oh, you're snogging in there.
It's going to turn the TV on. Never mind. But you can, hide away upstairs, but you just be on the premises.
And just be aware that if there are bedrooms that they have access to, you run the risk that the younger kids could be doing things in there that you don't want them to do. So you need to sort of have somebody just generally patrolling and making sure that there are no locked doors in areas where they shouldn't be. Some people would leave condoms out. I don't know, but, you just need to think about the audience that you have and make decisions based on that.
Choices,
Yeah. Regularly scan the house. Now, when we talk about that, it's hiding alcohol.
In the hedges.
In the hedges. Other nice fun places where they tend to hide them in are dishwashers, fridges, washing machines, ovens. So just have a look and just scan.
Watch out before you turn your oven on.
Exactly. If you find something, don't make a fuss.
No.
Just confiscate it. Yeah. Take it away, and then you know that it's fine.
Yeah. And you can give it to them as they're leaving if you
want. Well, that's it. And actually, if
or...
they turn up and they've got a bottle of vodka, you just say, oh, sweetie, I'll keep this, and you can have it to go back with your parent when you go home. And let the sensible, you can spot the sensible ones. There might be none, but if you see a sensible one, you can say, look, if anything's at any point, just come and let me know, and I'll do something I'll intervene. And I'll do it quietly so that nobody knows you said something. Yeah. Right? Get those people on your side.
And most teenagers, I think most teenagers are lovely. It can just get out of hand quickly.
It can get out of hand quickly, and once people are drinking, they're not really thinking.
No.
And those years, it's so much fun, and they've been so locked down, a lot of these kids, that actually it can just be a desire to let off steam, and then they don't realise that what they've done is they've broken all your things.
And
or
the risk part of their brain, as we know, isn't fully formed.
Exactly.
So, they're going to do stupid things and think they're, jump out of a tree when they're a bit drunk. And, oh dear, my leg just snapped. They don't think it through at all because they can't.
Yes. And so when you're talking to your teenager about having the phone number of the parents, I know I've had some raised eyebrows. There's a reason this is so important. And that is, if something goes wrong, you need someone to call. And I had a party here where one of the kids hurt himself, and it was marginal. So we tried to use a stereo strip to fix it. One of the parents said, "Oh, shall I call the parent?" And I said, well, maybe I should call the parent because it's my job to make sure this person's safe and they're not safe. And so this has happened. And the parent was so pleased that I'd contacted her. She came and took him into A&E so that he could get it stitched up. But, these things happen. And you just need to be able to call the parent.
If
and
it was your own kid, you want to be able to go and help them. It's a funny one. It's really made me think this part of it, because I think, with the younger ones, yes, I think I kind of know most of their friends, possibly not all of them, but you get a general idea. So I've got lots of the numbers anyway, and that wouldn't be an issue. But when they get older, I mean, I don't know who half my eldest friends are. He goes to a college where there's not that parental thing anymore. No. So then it's not relevant. There are different questions. So it's the younger guys.
I agree. Now, so coming on to your teenager wanting to go to a party. Questions are things, again, it depends on the age group. It really depends. And if they've come to you and said that they'd like to go to this party and they've been honest about it, well, give them credit for that and be grateful that you've got a teenager who's talking to you, and they're not just going to disappear off and say they're going round to their mate's house and suddenly you find out they're at a party, the other side of town. And just check in with them and you can say things like, are there going to be adults there? Is there alcohol? So when they're younger, you want to know this stuff, all the stuff we've been talking about. And you can say, I mean, for me, even with my 17, 18-year-old bonus daughters, it was things like, what time does that party finish? Here's when we want you home. Because it's more about me feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, and when we answer questions like that, I think it's really important to, if they're being honest and giving you answers that are a little bit, controversial, or you don't like them, that doesn't immediately then mean, well, if that's the case, then this. If that's the case, then this. Because then they won't share them with you.
They're not going to share with you. No, exactly.
So we
want to
make
avoid
this
that.
really, really careful dance between, we want them to give information and be, open to the answers and be reasonable and understanding, because otherwise they'll just lie.
So I think when you're talking to them about it, it's about saying, so I just want to know so that we've talked this stuff through so that you know how to cope if something goes wrong. So, how are you going to get to and from the party? What's the safe option?
Yeah, and then the classic, if you're feeling uncomfortable, whatever the time is, wherever you are, you have a signal between each other, if it's a kiss or whatever, thumbs up in your phone. I will ring you, you can, and I'll get you out. No questions asked.
Brilliant.
So that they feel safe.
And the thing about alcohol, again, because my kids have said, they know how I feel about alcohol. I think it's great if you want to enjoy alcohol at a certain age. And I've just said, look, just drink some water. Yeah. Eat food. Make sure that you just, you have an idea of how much you've drunk so that you don't get vulnerable. And it's just about safety.
Yeah, it's amazing really how many of them just presume that is the coolest thing they can do. And it is really fun. I'm not saying it isn't, but it's such a weird
but I think that's a cultural, particularly in England, and I don't know what it's like in a lot of other countries, and I know we've got over 90 people in 90 countries listening to us, so some of those countries are dry countries, but in England there's this very strange culture of getting completely drunk. And I've always hated it. I got a lot of pressure when I first started work. Our team had to go down to the bar and everybody was supposed to get blind drunk. And I can't stand that. It's not the way I function. And so I think, and it's in all the cards, and it's a very strange thing in my mind. And so the kids do absorb that, and they do think, well, that's how you have a fun party. So it's about discussing it. So just say, well, don't you think it's a bit weird that that's the only way that people seem to think they can have fun? Because it doesn't make any sense.
Sometimes it is fun, but sometimes it's not.
So if you've got a situation where you are having a disagreement with your teenager, right? So they've said, I want to do this, and you've thought, actually, that I'm not comfortable with that. the way to do it is to identify what is the problem here. We don't agree on something. What is it we don't agree on? Like, I want you to go to a party and have fun, but there's something here. Identify exactly what the problem is. Think about why it's a problem. So who's got the problem? Why is it a problem? Brainstorm together the possible solutions. Evaluate whether those solutions work, and then agree.
Yeah.
And the reason I talk about this step process, this 5-step process, is that it's really helpful as just a technique for learning how to resolve problems, full stop. But it's also about building their awareness that you're on their side.
Yes.
And
they can come to you with stuff. It's actually a really good opportunity, as all these things are, to build bridges with your kids and teach them how to discuss stuff, because you're not going to agree on all of it. Of course you're not. That would be weird. But it's an opportunity to say, okay, these are my non-negotiables. What are yours? How can we work this out? Can we work it out? Maybe we can't, but let's have an adult conversation about it, where we're not shouting at each other and freaking out, but we're having a proper discussion about it. I think it's brilliant learning tools.
Absolutely. So I think that's pretty much it. Anything else you want to add?
No, have a nice party.
I mean, the truth is, some of us really... I love giving parties. I always have done. And my kids don't seem to want parties, which is really painful for me.
Oh, I can come and throw one at mine.
And I mean, they want to go to them, but they don't want to host them, because I think it is stressful, and it's there's so much pressure, as you said. They're getting there. They're slowly getting there. They're starting to go, actually, it might be quite nice.
One of mine said, and one of my younger ones said, oh, can I have? He went to thought it was a really cool party. Can I have a party? And I did think about that.
Good.
We'll discuss it.
Well done.
And he will have one at some point, but we need to discuss it.
So we'd love to hear all of your stories and questions, so don't hesitate to get in touch. If you've enjoyed this episode, then why not help other parents? Tell your friends, tell the school, subscribe to our podcast. I'll just put it in here. I noticed that on our Apple Podcasts, only 30% of the people who are actually listening to it download it or follow us.
Yeah.
So there's a huge number of people who aren't. So if you like it, obviously if you don't like it, you don't. But if you do like it, subscribe. And then, it helps other people find us. And it also means you'll never miss an episode.
Yeah.
You can sign up to receive all of our latest news at our website, where there's a blog, reviews, links to every episode, and easy ways to contact us both. Susie has her own email address.
Oh, my website is www.mindful-life.co.uk. And just reiterating what you just said, I think it's always amazing to get feedback, whether you like it or you don't like it. That's it's great. We can have good discussions and things you want to know more of, even if you think it's an awkward question. Do it anonymously.
And we've had
love to hear.
We've had some really great suggestions coming up, guys.
Ooh. Exciting.
Right, that's it for now.
Goodbye for now. Bye bye.